The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. I answered it half asleep, expecting a wrong number. Instead, I heard my boyfriend's mother sobbing so hard she could barely speak. "There's been an accident," she whispered. "Ken didn't make it." Those 5 words ended everything. The wedding we'd planned for June, the nursery we'd been painting yellow, the future where I wasn't alone. I was 7 months pregnant, and the father of my child was gone. I sat on the edge of my bed until sunrise, one hand on my belly, the other clutching a phone that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Ken's funeral was small and quiet. His mother held my hand the entire time, both of us crying into tissues that didn't help. She told me I'd always be family to her, that she'd help however she could. But 3 weeks later, she had a heart attack. The grief had been too much. She survived, but the doctors said she needed complete rest and couldn't handle any stress. Her sister moved in to care for her. I visited once, and she cried when she saw me. "I'm so sorry, Mary," she whispered. "I wish I could do more." I told her it was okay. I didn't blame her. But inside, I felt the safety net disappearing. 2 months after Ken died, I gave birth to a baby girl. I named her Emma, after Ken's grandmother. The delivery room felt empty without him there to hold my hand and tell me I was doing great. The nurses were kind, but they had other patients. I held Emma for the first time and cried so hard I thought I might break. She had Ken's nose and his dark hair. She was perfect. She was also mine to raise completely alone. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days, then took a taxi home to my tiny apartment with a car seat I'd installed by watching YouTube videos. My savings ran out faster than I expected. Diapers, formula, rent, utilities, everything cost more than I'd planned for. I'd been working as a junior software engineer before Emma was born, but my company didn't offer paid maternity leave. I'd taken 6 weeks unpaid, and now my bank account was almost empty. I applied to 12 jobs in 3 days, sending resumes at 2 a.m. while Emma slept in my arms. I refreshed my email constantly, hoping for interviews. Nothing came. The rejection emails piled up. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Your skills don't match our current needs." Each one felt like another door closing. I called my father on a Wednesday afternoon. My hands shook as I dialed. We hadn't spoken much since he married Diane 4 years ago. She'd made it clear I wasn't her priority and he'd simply gone along with it. But he was still my father. I thought that had to mean something. "Dad, I need help," I said when he answered. "Ken died. I have a baby. I'm running out of money." There was a long pause. "Let me talk to Diane," he finally said. My stomach dropped. Even then, he couldn't make a decision without her approval. I waited on the line, listening to muffled voices in the background. When my father came back on the phone, his voice sounded different, smaller. "Mary, Diane thinks it would be better if you figured this out on your own. You're an adult now. We can't keep supporting you forever." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Supporting me? Dad, I haven't asked you for anything in years. I just need a place to stay for a few weeks until I find work." Another pause. More muffled conversation. Then Diane's voice came through, sharp and cold. "Mary, your father and I have worked hard for what we have. We're not running a charity. You made your choices. Now you need to deal with the consequences." She hung up before I could respond. I sat on my couch holding Emma, staring at my phone in disbelief. My own father had just turned me away. Not just turned me away, he'd let his wife do it for him. I thought about calling back, begging, explaining that I wasn't asking for money, just temporary help. But I knew it wouldn't matter. Diane had made her decision, and my father had made his by staying silent. I looked down at Emma sleeping peacefully in my arms. She had no idea how alone we were. I promised her quietly that I'd figure something out. I had to. I was all she had left. 3 days later, my landlord knocked on my door. He was a kind older man who'd always been patient with me, but even kindness has limits. "Mary, I'm sorry, but I need the rent. You're 2 weeks late now." I nodded, unable to look him in the eye. "I know, I'm waiting on a job offer. I just need a little more time." He sighed heavily. "I can give you until Friday. After that, I'll have to start eviction proceedings. I don't want to, but I have bills too." Friday was 4 days away. I thanked him and closed the door, then sat on the floor and finally let myself cry. Emma woke up and started crying too, as if she could feel my fear. Friday came with no job offer and no money. I packed everything I could carry into 2 bags, clothes for Emma, diapers, bottles, a few things for myself. I left behind furniture, books, everything that didn't fit. The landlord was sympathetic but firm. "I'm sorry, Mary, I really am." I nodded and walked out with Emma in a carrier on my chest and a bag in each hand. It was late November and the cold hit me immediately. I'd grown up in this town, walked these streets my whole life. Now they felt foreign and hostile. I headed toward the bus station, the only place I knew would be warm and open all night. The first night, I stayed at the bus station until a security guard told me I couldn't sleep there. "You need a ticket to stay inside after midnight," he explained. He looked uncomfortable, like he wished he could bend the rules. I gathered my things and went outside. The temperature had dropped below freezing. I found a covered bench outside a closed store and sat down, wrapping my coat around Emma as tightly as I could. She cried from the cold, and I sang to her softly, the same lullabies my mother used to sing to me before she died. I wondered what she would think if she could see me now. I hoped she couldn't. The second night was worse. A group of teenagers walked past and made comments. One of them kicked my bag, scattering diapers across the sidewalk. They laughed and kept walking. I gathered everything up with shaking hands, crying silently so Emma wouldn't wake up. On the third night, it started raining. I found shelter under a church awning, but the wind still cut through my coat. Emma developed a cough. I held her close, terrified it would turn into something worse. I had no money for a doctor. I had no money for anything. I checked my email every hour, desperate for any response to my job applications. Still nothing. On the 5th morning, I was sitting outside a coffee shop, trying to keep warm, when a black car pulled up to the curb. An older man in an expensive coat stepped out and looked directly at me. I tensed, expecting him to tell me to move along. Instead, he walked over and knelt down so we were at eye level. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. His voice was kind, without pity. I shook my head, too exhausted to lie. "I have a baby. I lost my apartment. I'm waiting for a job." He nodded slowly, studying my face. "What kind of work do you do?" he asked. "Software engineering," I whispered. "At least I used to." The man introduced himself as Alex. He didn't ask invasive questions or lecture me about my situation. He simply said, "You and your daughter need somewhere warm. I have a guest house that's empty. You're welcome to stay there." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "I don't have money to pay you," I said quickly. "I'm not asking for money," he replied. "I'm offering help, that's all." I wanted to trust him, but I'd learned to be cautious. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "Because someone helped me once when I needed it, and because no child should be cold." Something in his voice made me believe him. The guest house was small but perfect. 1 bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom with hot water. After 5 nights of freezing, it felt like a palace. Alex showed me how everything worked, then handed me a key. "Take your time," he said. "Get settled. We'll talk about next steps when you're ready." I gave Emma a warm bath, changed her into clean clothes, and put her down in the actual crib Alex had somehow already set up. She fell asleep immediately, her breathing finally steady and calm. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried. Not from despair this time, but from overwhelming relief. For the first time in weeks, we were safe. Alex came by the next morning with groceries, formula, diapers, bread, eggs, fruit. "You don't have to do this," I said, overwhelmed by his kindness. "I know," he replied simply. Over coffee, he asked about my background. I told him about my computer science degree, my year at a tech startup before Ken died, my experience with 3 programming languages. He listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions. "My son runs a software company," he said finally. "He's always looking for talented people. Would you be interested in an interview?" I felt hope surge in my chest for the first time in months. "Yes," I said. "Absolutely yes." The interview was scheduled for the following week. Alex's son Oscar met me at a modern office building downtown. He was professional but warm, probably in his mid-30s, with kind eyes that reminded me of his father. He didn't mention my situation or ask about the gap in my employment. He simply focused on my skills and experience. I showed him a portfolio of projects I'd worked on, explained my problem-solving process, demonstrated some coding techniques. 2 hours flew by. At the end, he shook my hand. I'll be in touch soon, he said. I walked out feeling nervous but hopeful. I'd done well. I knew I had. Oscar called 3 days later with an offer. The salary was fair, the position was entry-level but with room for growth, and they offered flexible hours so I could manage childcare. When can you start? He asked. Monday, I said immediately. I hung up and picked up Emma, spinning her around the small living room. We're going to be okay, I whispered to her. I promise we're going to be okay. I called Alex to thank him. You don't owe me thanks, he said. You earned that job yourself. Oscar doesn't hire people as favors, he hired you because you're good at what you do. Still, I knew I wouldn't have gotten the chance without Alex's kindness. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into every project, staying late to learn new systems, volunteering for difficult assignments. Oscar noticed. Within 6 months, he promoted me to a mid-level position with a significant raise. Within a year, I was leading small teams. The work was challenging and satisfying, and I was good at it. Emma thrived in daycare, making friends and learning to walk. Slowly, the sharp edges of grief began to soften. I still missed Ken terribly, still wished he could see Emma grow, but the pain became something I could carry instead of something that crushed me. I was healing. We both were. Oscar and I started spending time together outside of work. It began professionally. Coffee, meetings to discuss projects, lunches to review strategy. But gradually, it became personal. He asked about Emma, remembered small details I'd mentioned weeks earlier, made me laugh when I was stressed. He met Emma for the first time at a company picnic. She took to him immediately, letting him push her on the swings and giving him her best smile. She likes you, I said, surprised. I like her, he replied, and the way he looked at her made something warm bloom in my chest. I wasn't ready for another relationship. But maybe, eventually, I could be. 2 years after Alex found me outside that coffee shop, Oscar and I got married. It was a small ceremony at the courthouse, just Alex, Emma, and a handful of close friends. I wore a simple blue dress. Emma was our flower girl, taking her job very seriously at 3 years old. When Oscar and I exchanged vows, I meant every word. This wasn't the future I'd planned with Ken, but it was good and real and mine. Alex hugged me afterward, tears in his eyes. I'm so proud of you, Mary, he said. You've built something beautiful from nothing. I hugged him back. This man who'd saved us when my own father wouldn't. I couldn't have done it without you, I whispered. My career continued to grow. By my 3rd year at the company, I was managing major projects and earning more than I'd ever imagined possible. Oscar and I bought a house. Nothing huge, but ours, with a yard for Emma and enough space to breathe. We adopted a dog. We planted a garden. We built a life that felt stable and safe. Sometimes I thought about my father and Diane. I wondered if they ever thought about me, about the granddaughter they'd never met. I didn't reach out. I told myself it was because I didn't need them anymore. But part of me knew it was because I was still hurt. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. 5 years after they'd thrown me out, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mary? It was my father's voice, shaky and uncertain. It's Dad. I froze, phone pressed to my ear, 1,000 emotions crashing through me at once. I saw your name in the newspaper, he continued. An article about the software project you led. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so sorry for everything. I listened in silence as he explained how Diane had left him 6 months ago, how he'd lost his job, how they'd fallen behind on bills, and were losing the house. I know I have no right to ask, he said, but I wanted to apologize. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to ask why it had taken 5 years and a newspaper article for him to remember I existed. But another part, the part that still remembered being 6 years old and fishing with him on summer mornings, that part just felt sad. Thank you for apologizing, I said quietly. I hope things get better for you. There was a long pause. Mary, wait. We're losing the house. I don't know what else to do. Is there any way you could? He trailed off. He was asking for money. After everything, he was asking me for money. I took a deep breath. I'll see what I can do, I said, and hung up. I told Oscar about the call that night. What do you want to do? He asked carefully. I thought about it for a long time. I want to help, I said finally. Not for him, for me, so I can know I'm better than he was. Oscar nodded. Then we'll help. A week later, Oscar's lawyer contacted my father about purchasing the house before foreclosure. They negotiated a fair price, enough to clear his debts, and give him a fresh start somewhere else. The paperwork was handled through the lawyer. My father never knew he was selling to us. When the sale closed, Oscar handed me the deed. "It's yours," he said. "Do whatever you want with it." I held the paper, feeling the weight of it. The house my father had chosen over me now belonged to me. We never told my father we'd bought the house. He moved away quietly, and I didn't chase him down to explain. I didn't need him to know, didn't need his guilt or gratitude. The house itself we renovated and sold to a young family, a couple with a newborn struggling to find affordable housing. We gave them a price they could manage with flexible terms. "Pay what you can," Oscar told them. "We just want to help." Watching them move in, seeing their relief and joy, felt better than any revenge could have. My father had closed a door on me and Emma when we were freezing and desperate. 5 years later, I'd bought that door back, not to slam it in his face, but to open it for someone else who needed it more. That was my choice, and unlike his, it was one I could be proud of.